I truly have been there. I remember that my first publication in cardiology, when it got rejected, I don't know whether it's a choice I consciously made. I'm Dr. Carolyn Lam. I'm a senior consultant at the National Heart Centre, Singapore, and professor at Duke National University of Singapore. Very, very honored and pleased to be here with my dear friend, colleague, most respected boss, Dr. Jack Tan.
I've known Carolyn since we was a student together. We were medical students in the same school at Yongloo Lin, NUS. And she has always been very prominent, even in those days. Someone with really the X factor, as well as the brains to boot. And she's always been very accomplished, and wherever she goes, she moves and shakes the ground. So I think in her track, she took the road less traveled initially in Singapore. Carolyn, early in her career, decided she'll be a professor, and she'll be a darn good one at that. And she went and trained in Mayo, the US, other centers, took a executive program in Stanford as well in business. And she has run a lot of trials. She's world-renowned clinician scientist in the field of heart failure, HFrEF, and recently in cardiometabolic diseases. So she's really accomplished at such a young age. So I want to find out from you actually, what are the skill sets that you think, and how do you go about becoming a successful clinician scientist?
Yeah, choosing the path as a clinician scientist, sometimes I shake my head and wonder, because I don't know whether it's a choice I consciously made. It certainly wasn't my life's ambition to be a professor. That I can tell you from the bottom of my heart. I was simply following my heart, and it's because I've always, since I was a kid, I loved writing. I love creating. I'm a left-hander, by the way. I wonder whether it's part to do with it. But you know, at a young age, if my parents asked me, I would say I want to be an authoress, and I wrote little children's books. So I think in wanting to do medicine, which is also my life's calling, I can't imagine doing anything more meaningful. I sort of realized that there's very little creativity, frankly. You know, we follow the guidelines. The better you follow is good. I love the person interaction. But then there's this whole side of me of wanting to be creative, to express. And I think this was the avenue that eventually came out. It's interesting. So I don't know whether it's an intentional choice versus, you know, just kind of going with the flow and with my natural abilities and inclination. And if I were to advise the younger me, I mean, if you really wanted to reach a certain goal and had that in mind, I really would say, you know, hard work is really a big chunk of it. Just sheer hard work. The other thing is to have insight about one's own ability and inclination. I mean, really just be able to see yourself for who you are. And I think the characteristics that make a successful researcher is of course one, some creativity, that you're asking the questions and that motivation to find the answer. Number two, a sense of logical thinking, because you can ask creative questions, but you cannot translate it into a trial if you cannot put it down into logical steps and execute. And then the third is an ability to communicate. So even if you're the best researcher in the world, but you'll have an inability to write what you've done and the results in a way that people can appreciate, be it written, be it in a speech, that will also limit someone. So those three characteristics, I think, is something you need to reflect. Is it for you? And then after that, while being focused and putting in sheer hard work is also the ability to recognize and be open to different roads at the same time. I could never have predicted my path went as it did. So it wasn't charted or planned, but it was recognizing an opportunity and having that balance between being focused and also open to possibilities within a certain realm.
I think it's not easy to say I drop everything and spend like a decade in Mayo Clinic, and then go to the Boston and then follow up some more and do all this kind of stuff. And I think when you talk to the young, right, when you see them, how do you know that's what they're better at versus what they're not good at? When you're young, you kind of like not sure, right?
The first thing I would say to a young person struggling that is, I've been there. I truly have been there. I remember that my first publication in cardiology, when it got rejected, and it is correct that it's a quite narrow line between persisting and then also being a fool. You know, like you fail and the whole world is telling you this is not for you, and you still want to do it. I would say you just have to really self-examine along the way. You never reach. It's a work in progress. It truly is. I'll give an example. At Mayo Clinic, my first thing was in an animal lab. I went there to do bench research, and I chose against it because then the whole world of clinical research opened up, and I suddenly realized I was better at that. So that there are things that I have switched from, you know, and then the switch from pure epidemiologic clinical research to then trials was also a specific switch.
I mean, your family is a family of academics and very prominent people as well. And they were definitely very good role models. And you mentioned a few things that I picked up. One is mentorship. So for the young, you would advise finding a correct mentor. Secondly, I heard throughout all these things, a lot of determination, I would say. It's not easy going out there yourself, trying, failing, and picking yourself and going ahead. You can't give up too early. The last bit I heard from you is flexibility, I guess. Finding what suits you and then going along and then making the best of it. I come back to the mentorship part first though. How do you as a young clinician find the right mentor? Because do you seek them out yourself? Do you just ask to be assigned, or how do you know who's the right mentor for you?
I think the first thing to clarify to everyone is don't think of it as there's only one soulmate mentor in the world. I actually have many mentors. I have many role models. I have a role model when it comes to clinical practice. I have a role model when it comes to when I'm giving talks. So first of all, don't feel that if you've had a mentor and it's not working out that, oh, that's it, you know, like a marriage and till death do you part. You know, seek out, learn the best of that person. Obviously must be successful in some way. And then seek out the next mentor who may be successful in the other way that you're looking at. So I think that's really important. And then how do you find these? Well, for me, I got very lucky because Prof Ling put me in touch with Dr. Redfield. That was the first mentor, the second mentor. And then other ways are honestly meeting people, having the boldness to go up to someone you may have admired and just say, can I work with you? Can I do a project with you? Even if you admire someone's work on PubMed, their email addresses are all there as corresponding authors. So it's just, you know, reaching out. Or when we used to have these in-person meetings, I would actually wait to talk to someone I greatly admired whose work I really liked. So I think that's the way you find mentors.
That was terrific. I never thought of it that way, but when you identify with a mentor and there's something you want to learn, you're mainly looking at truly the skill set, or you're looking at the person. Is it, must you like the mentor first, or?
Yes and no. So there are some mentors that you may not agree with their personalities, but you admire the way they are decisive and efficient and respected. You learn those skills. Yeah. But don't become the hard person that you don't like, And then from another mentor, it may be more the way he or she is such a wholesome leader, inspiring. So, take that from that individual. I think that's more or less. But above all, for me though, I don't know whether this is a very female trait, but I definitely go a lot by feel. When I meet people, I get a lot of other input that I can't even articulate. And that's what I go by.
What are the skill sets that you think a clinician scientist needs to have?
It's not the PhD. You don't need a PhD to be really successful. Just look at the numerous examples in the world of highly successful people who don't have a PhD. But what the PhD does is train the logical thinking, logical thought process, and then translating a question into a logical thought process that can be answered. That part is almost a language of its own, and that language is statistics. So I really think it is necessary for a researcher to at least understand statistics, because if not, you can't speak the language. I feel it's almost that. And the ability to write clearly, speak clearly, just cannot be underestimated. And I don't know how to, that comes, by the way, through practice. So I used to, for example, when I was still with Dr. Redfield, my first manuscript to her came back completely redlined, rewritten. And I remember that I painstakingly went through every single correction, even if it's like shortening a space. Just trying to get into the head of what makes this a better way to even express something, or why is the flow like that, or why did she even split the two paragraphs like that, and so on. And I did that painstakingly, and it really paid off. So in other words, if you're a young researcher and you've written a paper, it comes back redlined, don't just accept all changes. You've completely deprived yourself of learning to write. That ability to have a bird's eye view of an entire project, but have the ability to also have attention to detail in the final presentation of it all, that's what makes a top-class researcher.
So that's one thing I really admire about you, because you're a great communicator, not just in the writing. I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, but also how you communicate and bring out what you've discovered on the paper actually to a wider audience. So I think communication is one of your great strengths, I would say. Effective communication. What do you think are the pros and cons of being a lady in cardiology as well as in the research field?
Yes. Why should you not consider it because of gender or anything? So please go with your heart. Now the first part, pros and cons of being a woman. Pros. I literally think like a woman. And so, and I'll show you concretely where I put that to what I feel was the best use. I opened the Women's Heart Clinic in Singapore. And I was really so grateful to do that, because it's so close to my heart. I see the way women, just ignore cardiology affairs. When I talk to a woman, I really get it, what they're saying and expressing. So it's a pro to be able to do that. Is it a pro in the research field? Well, I don't know whether I am stereotyping here, but I find my ability to pay attention to detail with the cons. I always try not to be too negative. I think I'll say the challenges. The challenges, I think, especially in Asia, is there's still very much the expectation that the woman takes care of the household. So it really, really gets tough. And frankly, I'm not blaming anyone for that expectation. I think it comes from ourselves too. You know, I mean, I just realized I'm married to an American gentleman, so he may not be bound by Asian cultural norms. If we have to be fully that and also fully here and also fully there, it really, really gets tough. I am Asian. I am so Asian. I grew up here. You know, I only lived away when I was training in cardiology. So I'm proudly Asian, and you know, and proudly a woman. Much as sometimes, you know, I get very upset when, you know, I sort of see chauvinism in the field. I do get upset, but I think it's the same type of upset is if I see bias against someone because of their background or because of their skin color, or, you know, gender. It's just like one of those things that we really shouldn't. We really should all be just humble and try to play to each other's strengths. It's admirable that you're head of department, you're a great leader, you're president of Asia Pacific, and yet you have that EQ sensitivity. I think we all need masculine and feminine positive traits.
But I think you managed to balance and capitalize on your female characteristics as well, and all your strengths. I think you just make out whatever best you have. I think that's what you taught me. I think and where you are, no matter what comes at you, you just be a bit flexible, determined, take in the best of, and learn from everyone. I think you will definitely improve. In your field, maybe in heart failure, cardiometabolic, or AI, can you tell me what you think is the direction in 10 years' time for the young to go into?
So I think first and foremost, let's not ignore cardiovascular disease in general. I mean, it tends to get so like old and established that people go for the new things. You know, for example, in the research world, I mean, everybody bemoans that so much research dollars is poured into oncology. What happened to cardiology? I mean, we're still like the top killer in the world, you know. So I would say, you know, consider cardiovascular disease. There's still a lot to be done, even though it seems like a lot already has been done. I think there's a lot to be done in preventive cardiology. I feel very passionate about that. And then if I were to restart again, there is one thing that I think I would enrich my knowledge more, and that would be in bioinformatics. So I think the researcher of the future, it's you're a superstar if you know all the medical stuff, and you can also speak stats, not just basic stats, but bioinformatics and systems biology and even AI. Wow, you're a superstar. You've got something that's very, very, very hard to replicate. So I think the field is moving a lot towards that, because those are the basic ingredients that would lead to individualized medicine, precision approaches, and so on. So maybe consider that.
Yeah, that's a very good thought for people, because everything is EMR, big data is coming our way. It's not in healthcare data collection, but outside of healthcare, they are collecting on our behalf. But how to put these two tracks together? I think we are pigeonholing people now, right? Cardiometabolic, heart failure. But in the future, it's all about how to look at data, and maybe the way research is done will be different as well. So,
thank you. I think one last thing to the juniors though is have fun along the way. No, life is short now, Jack, huh?
yeah.
Don't you think? Have to enjoy it. It's not always smooth, but
what's your view of work-life balance? Is there such a thing?
Maybe I enjoy work too much. That's the other thing, by the way. I truly enjoy what we do. I truly think it's a privilege for us to touch lives, you know, touch other people in places that you know, and in their lives that nobody else can. So I truly love that. So you know, I know it's very cliche. If you love what you do, you don't work, but it's so true. And you know, there was one point in my life when I told myself, okay, let's only do stuff that you enjoy. And luckily for me, work is something I enjoy. So that's great. Now the work-life balance, it really requires, interestingly, discipline. Because now it's so easy to just continuously go on. This is me time. And I think that's what it's about. It's also the discipline of saying no. So don't be too kiasu. Really don't. Have a mindset of abundance. There's lots of opportunities out there. There's blessings beyond which, don't need to go and scramble with everyone. Just have fun and walk your own path.
So maybe we can just end off by asking you what do you hope to see in 10 or 20 years time in this region, or what in the field of cardiology?
I would love a lot more attention on heart health of women. I still think it is not receiving as much attention as it should get. Very selfishly and narrow-mindedly, I would love a treatment that's effective for HFpEF, heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, something that predominantly also impacts women. I would love to see more women in cardiology in this region. I really think that it's this tremendous potential here. Seriously tremendous. And I hope that our entire region can be a bit more cohesive. So thank goodness for leaders like you, Jack, across Asia Pac. That's what we need now.
I think we're slowly getting there. I'm hopeful. We should be optimistic. People keep saying it's Asian-centric, but we should be Asian-centric for good health as well, whether it's women health or general health. And that's my hope, actually. We should do better as a group, not as individual countries, but as a group of cardiology.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Thanks for your time, Carolyn.
Thanks so much, Jack.